All right, so today's conversation is being recorded. So if you need to leave at any point for your self-care or for your schedule, feel free to do that. You won't miss anything. You can access the recording later today. It will be on the Survivor Circles page on Survivor Space and also on Zero Abuse Project's YouTube channel. For folks attending, if you haven't joined us before, just to let you know how to participate today. So your camera and your audio are disabled, and that's for your privacy and your safety. So we can't see you or hear you, but you are able to participate in the conversation today by typing a question or comment into the chat at the bottom of your screen. When you do that, you have the option of sending your question or comment to making it visible to everyone, so the three of us and everyone attending, or you can just send it to the three of us. So you have that option. And I know John and John Michael would love for your questions or comments at any point today. So please feel free to use the chat. And a quick shout out to our funders, the Office for Victims of Crime. They provide grant funding for all of Survivor Space, including our Survivor Circles. So we are grateful to them. Well, I am grateful to the two men on your screen here with me today. Very excited to welcome back my good friend, John Michael Lander, and his friend, the very humble and lovely and quite accomplished and talented John Callas. So I will turn it over to the two of you. Welcome.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing us to have this venue to do this. I am like overexcited about this. I had been on cloud 12 when John said he would agree to come and speak with us. I am one of his biggest fans. I have followed him for so long, and he's just one of the most sweetest men you'll ever meet. And I'm so excited to introduce you to the incredibly talented director, writer, producer in Hollywood, John Callas. And John, if you would just say hello to everybody, and then we'll get started.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you. That's great. I will say real quickly, John is pretty humble, so we might have to pull some strings to get him to talk about certain people. So we're going to try that. So, John, what I would love you to do is just introduce yourself, what your focus is, and your mission to the people. And if you feel comfortable, about a little bit about your background, how you became who you are today.
Sure. It, that could take forever to go through, but
I know,
uh,
I know.
basically, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a director, writer, producer for 50 years. I've had 8 award productions, including an Emmy nomination. Came to Hollywood, $75 in my pocket, and my family was laughing, saying, "You can't be a filmmaker. You don't know anyone out there. You have no connections. How are you going to get in?" I said, "I don't know, but I'll figure it out." And one thing led to another. I had a very lucky break on one set that I got to be on. And I got in the art department, and a director liked what I was doing, and he asked me to be a dialogue coach. And one thing led to another, and it kept going. And then everything just completely dropped out of the floor. And I was stuck with no job, nothing. So I became a counselor at an employment agency. I built a brick wall on Sunset Boulevard. I became a waiter. And then a friend of mine walked in, a production manager said, "What are you doing being a waiter?" I said, "Well, I kind of ran out of jobs." He says, "Well, I'm starting a job next week and I need a prop master. Are you available?" I said, "Yes, of course I am." And as soon as that job went, I never looked back. And that's 50 years of it. It's been a hell of a good time. Um, what led me to this is my long journey from being a ghetto kid, being abused, sexually abused, depressed, abandoned, and every other possibility, including an attempted suicide, to realize there were people out there that had my best interest in mind when I didn't have my own best interest in mind. And so if I was going to survive, I needed to learn how to revive. And until I got that in my head, it was going to be a long, hard journey. And one of the key things that happened to me in Colorado was a dear friend of mine said to me, you got to stop trying to forgive other people. You have to start with yourself. You need to forgive yourself."
Mhm.
And from there, we built a whole context and meditation and a lot of things.
That's amazing. And I want to talk about your book real quick so we can get that out of the way, which is right here, everyone. This is a must read. It's not just enjoyable to read. It's not enjoyable because you have hard times then, but it's so informational and it helps survivors. I've read this book and I felt like I was getting answers delivered to me directly to me. So please pick up his book. It says, when the rain stops, it's about a young man rising from the ghetto and struggling with neglect and abuse to become a Hollywood director. How did your experiences affect your journey and assist you in becoming a successful writer, director, and producer? And how is it still affecting you today with assisting other people?
Well, I think, John Michael, what I did is I woke up one morning and realized what it felt like to be neglected, what it felt like not to be seen, heard, or anything like that. And I made a promise to myself that I would never do that to other people. I would take time to listen to everybody, no matter what their plight was, and find ways to help each other. It was not an easy path. There were a lot of obstacles. I mean, look, Hollywood's filled with disingenuous people. They'll be talking to you while looking over your shoulder, seeing if they can get a bigger, better contact. So I had to start filtering through all of those type of mindsets and people taking a shot at hiring me and all that. So it became a tough one. So I think the abandonment issues and the trauma and the attempted suicide, I can almost see on a set somebody going through a hard time. And I've been
Mm,
known like to take a low-level production assistant into the back office and they'd say, "Am I in trouble, Mr. Callas?" I said, "No, but I think you're having a rough day, are you?" And half the time they'd break down crying. They said, "I'm just so scared. I don't know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah." And I'd sit and talk to them for about 20 minutes. Now that's a lot of time on a set when it's like 10 grand an hour flying through the pocket. But I felt that that person needed that more than I needed the money to worry about shooting a scene at the moment. And usually it helped that person because they got an opportunity to talk. Now, you know as well as I do, men don't talk very often about their feelings. So I think that's something that we have to start uh, normalizing, that it's okay for men to have feelings. And so my journey there was to take all of my emotions and use them to empower other people. For example, actors stand in front of the camera, I stand behind it. I don't have any angst. I'm safe, but they're putting their whole guts on the line, their performance, their inner feelings about everything. And if I don't guide them right and have a sensitivity towards the character they're playing, then how am I going to be a good director?
right. And it's been known that you had the incredible opportunity to work with Eric Roberts on the
Yes.
film No Solicitors. And many people have said that he's been very difficult to work with, or he's stubborn, or whatever you want to say. But you had a different experience with him. Can you explain a little bit about that and share that story and how what you went through was able to do what you were just talking about, talking to people, taking that assistant back into the room and asking what's wrong, just asking questions to get what you needed out of them and to make them feel like they're human.
Well, when I was in the office, my assistant came running in and said, "Eric Roberts here, Eric Roberts here." I said, "Okay." He says, "Well, he wants to meet you." I said, "Okay, please tell him I'll be there in a couple of minutes." He's, "But that's Eric Roberts." I said, "Right. Okay, I got it. Thank you. I need to finish this before I talk to Eric." So I walked in. First thing he did is he said, "Hey, you're the director." I said, "Yes. Nice to meet you, Eric." He says, "Nice to meet you, John." He said, "You want some breakfast? You guys really laid out a really nice spread for me." And I thought, okay, that rumor's not really true. I don't find him difficult so far. And he said, "So I read the script." I said, "Okay." He goes, "I think it's a great part. Do you want to tell me anything?" I said, "Eric, I've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this a long time. Um, I, I don't want to say anything that might take you down a path that you might have a better idea of the character or how you want to play it. So how about if I see you going off the rails or anything, I'll let you know. Otherwise, let's just see what we come up with together." And he smiled. He goes, "You are a director." And that was it. On set, he was having so much fun. You know, we have a clapper that marks where the film and the sound get together, right? He would stick his finger in so that it couldn't clap. And, you know, he was like really having a lot of fun with the crew, and the crew was really enjoying him. I ate lunch with the guy every day. Very brilliant man, very bright, intelligent, well educated person. I found him delightful. I didn't see 1 ounce of diva. I didn't see any kind of, well, I've been an Academy Award winner, so I know what I'm doing here. He came up to me at one point. He goes, "In this scene, what's my relationship with my son?" I said, "Well, let's talk about it. There's a lot of choices here." He goes, "Yeah, I know. That's what's confusing is what choice do we want to take?" I said, "Well, this is how I structured it. But if you have a different idea," he goes, "No, that's what I needed. I needed that framework." I said, "Okay, cool." And that was it.
It's amazing. Now with that, thinking about that, you got me thinking about just when you said son, about your age when you were a son and you were sent off to school and when all this stuff started happening. Can you give a little bit background to our audience about what happened? Where were you? What was going on? It's what you talk about in the book, and it kind of sets up your journey into where you went into becoming who you are today. And I think it's really important to share if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. I think by way of background, 10 days after my third birthday, my dad died.
Mhm.
And when I was told he was dead, I slipped into a depressing fit that I felt abandoned. I felt like my dad left me. And, being 3 years old, you don't have a lot of intellectual capacity at that time, but I knew I was alone and it scared the crap out of me. And I was having dreams of me falling down a spiral and I would wake up sweating and I was scared to go to sleep. I mean, it literally horrified me to go to bed. Um, by the time I was 15, I was so out of control. Sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. By the time I was 12, my mother had remarried, and I was in so much trouble that the court gave them a choice, either reform school or military school. So my mother took me from New Jersey to New York City, put me on a train alone at 12 years old to go from New York to Virginia to a military school. And as I'm still today, those days, the train windows went up and down. So I had my head out looking. And she literally turned away and started walking away. And then the train pulled out and I saw her getting smaller and I just lost it. I thought, holy, I don't know what I'm doing. I am petrified. I don't think I've ever experienced that much fear in my life. Now, to do full circle on this, years later, my mom and I had a conversation about that. And she goes, "Oh, honey, you have it all wrong." I said, "What do you mean? You walked away, mom." She goes, "No, I turned away because I was crying. I didn't want you to see that I was putting my 12-year-old baby on a train and I felt like a failure as a mother." I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "John, I had 3 kids. I had no support. Your stepfather and I were just starting to see each other. And I didn't have the time or the skills to help you. You needed a lot of help. You were in a lot of trouble. You were really out of control, and we didn't have the skills." And in 1963, 62, sorry, there were really not a lot of mental health experts that could help you. And to talk about emotions was like, you shut up. You want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about. Men don't cry. You can suck it up and get on with it. And so by the time I was 15 in a private school, I had had it. I was lost. I didn't want to live anymore. So I went down the end of the dock, partially frozen lake, and jumped in the water and trying to kill myself. Underwater, I realized that that was not the answer. I didn't want to die. So I got out and freezing cold and started trying to piece my life together. Then mentors came into my life at that point and it started changing.
Now, also, you mentioned that between the 12 and 15, there were other things going on within the school. Am I correct with that? And the abuse
Yes.
that you experienced there was also which led to that walk down that plane, that and to jump into the icy water. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because most of our listeners are survivors themselves. And I think since this is, Sexual Abuse Awareness Month, this might be something that might be interesting to share your experience and how you were able to take that, do the jump in the lake, and then realize that you did want to live.
Sure. Let's go back to military school because that's where it really started with the abuse and
Okay.
everything. When I got there, nobody told me the rules. I didn't know anything, I mean, I just thrown in a dormitory. The first night there, and look, I'll tell your audience candidly, I had a mouth on me. I was a wise ass. You know, you grew up in the streets of Jersey City. If you don't have a mouth on you, you're going to get the hell beat out of you. So I developed a quick wit and, comeback lines and, things that weren't really appropriate, shall we say. So the first night in military school, because I didn't know the rules and everything, I literally got knocked out 3 times because of my mouth. But before the third knockout, I managed to take 2 out before they knocked me out again. So that felt pretty good. Um, it started with that and the fact that I was so out of control there that the headmaster came and talked to me. And at that point in my life, I really had no bearing about what was heterosexual, what was homosexual, how it all fit together. And he was gay, and I didn't quite tweak that in my brain that this was a gay man and I'm not a gay man and blah blah blah. And he sat down on my bed and was rubbing my leg, and I was really uncomfortable about this. And he kept doing these kind of overtures, and I eventually threw up outside the window, and then I ran away from school 3 or 4 times because I was so confused at that point. Because prior to that, a woman tried to rape me. My sister's girlfriend tried to rape me. So now I'm conflicted with heterosexual, homosexual, me finally having the ability to have feelings down below as a young boy growing up. I didn't know what to do with it all. So one of the cadets came to me and said, "Look, the headmaster likes you." I said, "Yeah, I'm not into that." And he goes, "No, we have a small group that goes away camping, and you should come with us for the weekend." And I thought, God, I'll do anything to get out of the military school for a weekend. Why not? Civilian clothes, the whole works. The first night after we gathered firewood and built the fire, kumbaya and all that nonsense, I go into my tent and I'm looking out, full moon, see the lake in the background, my headmaster's tent, and I see a shadow of he and a young boy going down like this. And then his head went down. Well, I got in my sleeping bag, zipped it up, covered myself up, and I swore I would bite somebody if they came near me. I was so scared. Next day we were leaving. I got in the car, off we went. He calls me into his office the next day and he says, "Why don't you ever have any affection towards me?" And I said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And he says, "One of the boys tells me that you and he have affection, but you don't have it with me." I said, "Well, that boy is a freaking liar because I'm not having anything with anybody." He says, "You got to pull your pants down because you're lying and I'm going to spank you now." So down with the pants, wouldn't handle, and he whacked me. He was trying to get me to scream, and I wouldn't. I bit my tongue almost in half. I mean, he was whacking the crap out of me. And you could see he was sweating because he was a large guy. And he said, "All right, get out of my office." And for some reason, after that, he realized it wasn't going to happen. And he left me alone.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm just picturing the whole thing, and it's just mind blowing. You also said that you ran away a couple of times, and there was one experience that I remember in the book that you shared about how you ran away and who you met and stuff like that. Can you share any of that right now?
Sure. I was, well, 2 people I met. The first one was I ran downtown, called my mother screaming that they're trying to kill me and everything. And she said, "Calm down, you'll be fine. I already called the school. They're going to come pick you up. Where are you? Blah, blah, blah." So I hung
Oh my
up and I'm
God.
sitting on the curb and I threw up again. And the doorman came over with a handkerchief, handed to me, and I'm cleaning myself up. And he looks at me and goes, "You go to military school, don't you?" I said, "How'd you know?" He goes, "You're down with the headmaster, the big guy." I said, "Yeah, why?" He goes, he points and the car was coming up. I went, "You have a place I can hide?" He goes, "You'll be okay. Just don't get in their way. They always look for somebody. Don't do it. Don't be that guy." And one of the chefs said the exact same thing to me when I was up there. Um, so that started one of them. And then the one time I really got far enough away, I was running through, I don't know, a field or something, and I heard, "Hey," and I froze and I turned around and there's a girl there. Now, I didn't know if I was imagining or what. And we had this whole conversation. "What's your name?" So I made up a name. She goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm out nature hunting and all that." So she let me lie for about 10 minutes. She goes, "Okay, you finished lying? Are you going to tell me the truth now?" And I looked at her. I said, "How did you know?" She goes, "I can see it in your eyes. You're really hurting. What happened?" And I told her about military school and everything. She goes, "I'm going to tell you something you're not going to believe right now, but there's something in you and you need to go back and deal with it. Just don't get in their way. Again, don't get in their way. Don't, this was a repetitive theme. I think everyone knew with the military code of ethics that if you're out of line, they can do whatever they want to you. So they were trying to guide me away from those kind of things. And she gave me a little strength to go back. And to this day, I'm still not sure if it was an angel or if it was a real person or what, but it helped.
That's it's interesting how sometimes strangers can be the people that are the ones who guide us in the right directions. Especially, I experienced that with myself. You know, going through my experiences, and and I still think, were they an angel or not? And that's I love that you shared that, and that's pretty cool. You know, you talk about going to after you got out of the military school, you started to study to become a director, and you had this experience up in the woods. You remember that part of the book? I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
something really, I know you can remember. Why would I ask that? But it's such a beautiful part of the story. And it's such a story of hope and where it led you and how you ran into, you know, how the director of the theater department was kind of like, you know, share a little bit about that because I think that it talks about how you won him over by being you and not being somebody you think he wanted you to be. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And I'm
Absolutely.
trying to guide this to help survivors to be themselves instead of trying to be what we think everybody else wants us to be. And because when we do that, we give our power away and we no longer are who we are. And I just love this story if you would share that.
I'd be happy to. And for your audience, before we get to the Third Eye Theater with the director, my neighbor, Mark O'Brien, affectionately called OB, taught me a lot about life on a chessboard and meditating and how to survive in the world. And he got me to the point where he made me realize that if I didn't speak up for myself, I would constantly get run over. Okay,
Mhm.
so then I joined what was called the University Without Walls, which was for kids that knew what they wanted to do, but classroom wasn't suited, so they designed a whole program around that. The head of the department came to me and said, "I'd like to introduce you to Joey Fabre at the Third Eye Theater and see if we can get you an internship." Now, I got really excited. She goes, "I'm going to warn you now, Joey is a tough character. He has never once taken anybody in as an intern. It's just not his jam. It's just not him. So don't be disappointed when he says, bugger off." I said, okay. And on the ride down there, I kept thinking, I have to be who I am. I can't let this opportunity go. I have to be who I am. I can't let this go. I have to do what's right, blah, blah, blah. So I walk in and we're introduced, and Joey goes, "So what's your name?" Right there, I knew he was from New York. And I said, "John, what's yours?" He goes, "Joey." I said, "Okay, nice meeting you." So Joey, he goes, "Look, I'm going to stop you right there, kid." I said, "What?" He goes, "This whole thing about interns and all that, it's like, it's just not for me. It's not going to work out. It never has, never will." And I look around and I say, "Well, I got to tell you something. You got a real shithole here, and I'm trying to help you. You don't want my help? That's fine with me. I'm out of here because this place is a dump." And I turn around and start walking. My professor went like this. She goes, "Oh my God, what happened just now?" And Joey said, "Hey." I turned around and said, "What?" And he goes, "A shithole, huh?" I said, "That may not even be that good. I mean, look at the rafters. Your lighting grid's coming apart. Your walls, you don't have any flats. The place is a mess. And you're going to open it how many weeks? Not a chance." He goes, "Where are you from?" I said, "Jersey." "Where are you from?" He goes, "New York." I said, "Yeah, well, we can't all be perfect." And he said, "Well, you got a mouth on you, don't you?" I said, "Well, you know, I think it takes one to know one there, Joey." All right. So anyway, see you later. I turn around. He goes, "Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute." He says, "I like you. You got a set of nuts on you." I said, "Okay." He goes, "I like the fact that you're the only kid that's ever come in here and said how he felt. And I like that. So I want you to work for me." I said, "Nope." I turn around. I start walking. I goes, "What do you mean, no?" I said, "I'll work for you for one reason." He said, "What is it?" "You apologize." And he looks at Judith and he smiles. He looks, he goes, "You want me to apologize too?" I said, "Yeah, you were a real ass. And I'm not going to work for an ass. So if we're going to work together, you got to apologize." He goes, "All right, I'm sorry." I said, "Nah, you're a director. You can do better than that." He looks, he goes, "Judith," and she goes, "You're on your own." so, so he looked, he goes, "John, I admire you. I'm sorry. Will you come work for me?" I said, "I'd love to." "When do we start?" He goes, "Tomorrow." I said, "Okay." And we became like father and son. And he eventually got out of me why, what happened with my dad and everything. And he put his arm around me and goes, "John, you're not alone anymore. You're in the theater. You chose this as your life. And all the people here will support you to the ends of the earth. You have family now." And I just started crying. It was just, an epiphany that I had something that I could survive out of, that I didn't have to stay the victim anymore, that there was a path to healing and that I could take control of it myself. I didn't need the rest of the world to validate me anymore. But if I didn't validate myself, how am I going to get it from others? Because I don't show self-respect for me, why would they give it from them? So I learned to start to survive on that moment.
And not only are you this award-winning director, writer, and producer for Hollywood projects, you also are very focused in the mental health department area. Give a little bit about how that is why you chose to do that, and how and what your purpose is in helping people with mental health. You know, because
Sure.
Hollywood could be just like, oh, I'm just a director, I don't need to do anything else. But you have gone beyond that. You've gone to help people in more ways than one. And I've seen you and I've watched you do this. Not only are you talking about your award-winning stuff, you're also talking about making sure that people are mentally in the right mindset to be able to do what they can do.
Yeah. Well, it started out that after I wrote When the Rain Stopped, which was, I think, my third or fourth book, I wanted to sell books. And I went scouring all over the internet and I found this thing called Magnify Your Message with a woman named Cheryl Hunter, who you're obviously familiar with. And so I spoke to them and I thought, maybe they can help me sell books. So I signed up on the program, and the program just took me in a completely different direction. It wasn't about selling books. It was really about becoming an expert on a life experience of being a mental health expert. And I had no clue that that's the direction I was heading with it. Because I was just there trying to figure out, how is this program going to help me sell books? And what it became was, it wasn't about selling the books. It was about offering information within the book to help other people who have traumas and depression find a way, a path to get out of it. And as it went on, I started feeling like, well, I actually have some value here to offer people, not out of ego or anything other than I know what it's like. I speak the language. I've been in depression. I know it. There's a safe haven in depression, which is really a sick thing to say, but we can talk about that if you want. But there's all of these facets that are going on. And I thought, if I can use mental health as a platform to help other people who've been abused, who are trying to survive life, who have depression, anxiety, trauma, and teach them that it doesn't have to ruin or define your life and be the example for them. I'm not a therapist. I'm not licensed to practice, but I have life experience, so I can talk to people like that. And from that, a lot of people have benefited. And I get these emails once in a while saying, I am using what you taught me. I love it. I love you. I'm on a really good survival path. Yes, I've had some falls and I've bruised my nose several times, but I'm now able to get up and keep going. That was a big step for me to read that I am now able to get up and keep going. That means I gave somebody the spark of life for them to do what they need to do in their life.
I think you're an incredible example of that, living your own life and reading your book. It made me feel like I could do it because it shows that, you know, that you were this human. You know, you may be this spiritual soul on a human experience, but we fall, we trip, we fall down. And I would like you to talk about that safe haven that you were just talking about and give an example about how we can utilize that and why we use it.
Sure. I'm going to go a little anti-mythology here in a sense.
Wonderful.
Um, there's a term that I've always been, something in me just hated. I don't know why, but first time I heard it is, you are not alone. First
Yeah.
reaction was, you don't know what you're talking about. I am definitely alone. You have no clue what you're talking about. And what I realized is that for me, I'm not speaking for everyone who's got depression or has had it. Um, I would go and isolate myself and I would feel safe. Nobody could hurt me. Nobody could guide me. Nobody could punch me. Nobody could do anything. I was safe in my own little cocoon. I was a happy little clam, no matter what was going on. But as soon as somebody came in, right away, right? Like, right, I get um, and I've tried to explain this to other people that mental health, depression stuff has a little safe place. It's like the fox being, or the rabbit being chased by a predator, gets in a hole. They're in there, they're safe, they're comfortable, they relax, their heartbeat goes down, and they wait till the predator leaves, and then they come back out and go about their business. Same with mental health. We all find that comfort zone is what I call it. And we hide in that comfort zone so that we feel comfortable in our depression. Now that sounds like an oxymoron. How can you be comfortable in your depression? But it's because it's the only thing you own. And when it gets bad, you know where to go hide to deal with it. You may not deal with it great. You may not have the tools. Okay, but at least you're out of the situation that's causing the triggers.
Okay. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yes,
I
yes,
thought we
yeah, yeah.
froze there for a second. I thought we
No,
froze there for a second. So, do you think one of the oxymoron things that we're thinking about and what our society puts onto us is that when going into the hole and we feel safe, but the problem is that the depression is within us. So we're carrying that in with us. So we're not really getting away from the depression, but we're getting away from the external object that may be causing the depression.
right.
And how would you talk to someone to say that what if we think that we're causing the depression ourselves? You know, um, I had a moment this morning when I was working on a project, and all of a sudden I had this total self unworthiness going on in my head, and I was like, I can't deal with this. I can't do this, and I retreated within myself. I kind of laid back on the couch and then I said, and then I said to myself, oh my God, am I creating this myself? Am I creating my own self unworthiness here because of something I don't want to face or do? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Could that
Absolutely.
be something involved in there, or what is your viewpoint of that?
Well, let's back up to what the CDC states. They said that every adult in this country will have at least one major depressive episode in their life. So nobody gets out of life free on this one. I think that the key is you have to have a tool to define. You wake up one morning and you've got all this crap going on in your head and you feel depressed. Right away, you have to say, am I having a bad day? Am I just having a little depression? Or am I having a full blown depression? Now, you work through that during the day. The next morning, you wake up and you look around and say, oh, I'm still depressed. If that repeats another day, then it's time to get some professional help. However, the second day when you wake up, you say, no, I'm kind of feeling a little bit better. Now you have an opportunity to look and see what the trigger was, how you overcame it, what tools you used to get through it. I mean, it's in the book. I developed Uncover, Discover, and Recover to help people with a simple, basic tool that continues to help me to this day. I don't think, John Michael, that there's fairy dust that sprinkles on us and all of a sudden depression just goes away. By rights, I'm 74 years old. I do get depressed once in a while, but I now have tools to recognize I'm depressed. And instead of getting depressed over being depressed, I calm myself down and say, what are you depressed about? What's got you by the tail today? And if I can work through that and come up with it, then I have a path to fix it. And quite often when I get through it, I'll say, oh, that's what it is. It's because I'm putting myself under too much pressure to perform. And I need to back off and slow it down a little bit. Now, God's my witness. For the last 3 years, my hands have shaken like this. Like I could not pick up a cup without it shaking. And about 3 or 4, 5 weeks ago, I started making this mixture of cumin and cinnamon and ginger and all that. It's supposed to help you weight loss, but for some reason, that along with these gummies that my wife gave me called Sleep and Relax, gave me a chance to decompress before I went to sleep. And I was able to fall asleep calmly. And I realized that the shaking was a subtext to anxiety that I hadn't dealt with. I was so I got to keep working. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and keep working like crazy. And I just had myself going like the motor was running and I never shut it off or even slowed it down to just take a breath. So once I realized that, then I was able to calm it down. And now I can hold my hands up, no shaking and stuff. I mean, occasionally, yeah, but it was like I said to my wife, did you notice it? She goes, I was going to mention that. What do you think it is? And we tried to figure it out. And it came out that it was all the anxiety and crap that I put myself under. So I had to just calm that down.
That's amazing. And I want to talk about uncover, recover, discover, or uncover, discover, recover.
Yeah, one of those.
One of those things. I want to talk about that, but I also want to, talk a little bit more about that concoction you created. And is that something that, where did you find that? Is it something that we all could try, or what's your suggestion about that?
Well, it didn't make me lose weight and it
Ah,
tastes horrible. But I went online and I said, if you mix this with that, is it any good for you? Is it poisonous? And they came back and said, those are great things to build your immune system up. And I think, oh, great. I spent a week gagging myself with this crap and it's building my immunity system. Okay, fine. So now I'm immune to myself. I don't know. So,
ah,
uh,
oh my God, be immune to yourself. My goodness. Okay. And real quick, talk about those three words, that tools that
okay,
you use that can help us all. Because
sure.
I've used it myself and I truly believe in it.
Thank you. It's uncover, discover, and recover. The first thing you do is you have to uncover what's making you uncomfortable, what the situation is that you're involved in. Next is you have to discover whether or not your perception of the truth of that situation is in fact the truth, or is there an alternative truth? It's the old saying, there's always two sides to every story. So you get in a fight with a friend of yours and you say, blah, 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 and they say, blah, 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 and you go away, you go, well, he, man, man. And, if you're honest and start to think about it, you both played a part in it. You have to uncover, discover what your part was. Once you discover that, recovery is taking the necessary steps to move your life forward and away from that.
Listening to you explain it like that, something that came into my head really fast was it's also taking the power back and the choice, because you can't do all three of those unless you're making choices along the way, in a
Exactly.
way. And you can't heal unless you choose to heal. And I think that's one of the things that's really kind of mixed up and messed up in our society today, because we're told how we're supposed to heal. I know people say, if you're on a healing journey, you got to go A, B, C, and D, and that's not true, because each person has their own journey, and there's not a certain, logical pattern to go through. And I think what you're saying is the uncover, discover, and recover is allowing us to find our own path and find our own way to do that, without someone saying you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You're saying, wait a minute, I uncovered this situation. I discovered my part in it, and now I can heal. It's brilliant. It's actually brilliant.
It's a
So
very
thank you.
simple tool that I think a lot of people have benefited from. And like you've discovered, it really helps. And I think what you said was monumentally important. And I'd like to repeat that because your audience really needs to hear it. Those three steps are empowering you to take your power back and make choices about your life. Okay, uncover. Well, I'm not a millionaire, so I want to be a millionaire. No, that's not what the design is for. But it does, it doesn't force you, but it guides you into taking your power and processing it on your own terms. And that's powerful stuff.
That's incredible. And now let's switch this a little bit. I want to talk about Hollywood again. We're going
Sure.
back. And I want to see how you think or how you feel. And I know you don't want to talk about it anybody, because you're not that person. You never have been and you never will. Even if someone did something wrong, you're not going to say anything about it. But how is Hollywood helping society to understand mental illnesses or mental health? Is it helping or is it hurting?
I think it's helping tremendously because a lot of the stars, men and women, are coming out and saying, I've suffered from trauma, I've suffered from abandonment, I've suffered from depression. And what they're helping to do is to normalize mental health, that it's not a disease. A lot of people think mental health is a disease. I would prefer finding a different word. Now, I've come up with the word condition because it is a condition that takes the ilk off of it being some sort of disease where, you're going to be put in a cave because you got leprosy. Just because you have mental health issues doesn't mean that you can't be the president of the United States. or, a famous singer or something, a lot of comedians, stand-up comedians are the most depressed people you'll
Mhm.
ever run into. But they get up on stage and this alter ego comes out and they make people laugh and that makes them feel good. And then they go back and they're depressed again. So it's it's just one of those things that you have to get through and keep always keep trying to nurture yourself. So Hollywood, I think, has done that. They've helped bring it to normalization levels, and people are talking about it now. I mean, on the news, you can't turn on the news anymore and somebody's saying, well, that could possibly be a mental health issue, and we need to look at something like that. And so these words are starting to get into the mainstream media where it's diffusing it. It's not
Mhm.
mental health. Oh, your friend has mental health problems. Oh, I don't want to know you. You probably it's contagious. So it's like when HIV came out, people were scared to death they were going to catch it. And I was hugging guys that had HIV, and my friend saying, "Are you crazy? Aren't you scared?" I said, "Do some research, educate yourself. Don't be an idiot.
Right.
The man has HIV. He doesn't have leprosy. It's nothing I'm going to catch unless I do something stupid. So do some research. People get scared because they're not educated on an issue. HIV is a great thing. It's Black Lives Matter, another thing. It's all these things, social things. But so I know I'm getting off track here, but
No, that's right.
Hollywood has definitely made an impact because they're helping to normalize it.
Do you think that the onslaught of films that have been coming out about human trafficking and sex trafficking, are they making it bigger than what it really is, or are they just being able to open up just a little bit so that we can see into it? Because a lot of people were really upset with a couple of the films that came out, saying that that's not the way it really is, and why are we only looking at third world countries when it's happening in our backyard? But what is the positive side that these films have been able to get out to everybody?
Well, that these conditions actually exist and it's a serious issue. And it's not like, well, three people down the block did it and that was all we had in the entire world. So it's no big deal. This is something that I don't have an answer for, and I'm just going to say it out loud. I'm trying to peek in and see what it's all about. And the more I peek in, the bigger it gets. And the more you uncover it and discover it, the more you realize how much is out there that we're completely ignorant of. I mean, the
Right.
trafficking, the sex, everything. Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, that whole thing exploded. And I never even heard of him until all of this stuff. So there's a high profile guy with with all sorts of high profile people doing these I'm sorry, I'll say it, disgusting things with young children. Um, I can't even I can't wrap my head around why do that with a kid? But anyway, so I don't know if we even have begun to see how deep this iceberg is because it's
Right.
so big and it's so prevalent and it's so easy for your kid to be walking on the street, a van comes by, off you go. I mean, we
Mhm.
don't know how much is really going on. I mean, we have data now, we have, some basic idea, but deep inside, I think it's deeper than we even imagine.
Right. Right. And there's a term that's being thrown out a lot within the sex abuse community called divergent mind. Have you heard this?
I have not.
And sometimes when I first heard it, I thought, oh, that's really kind of cool. But then I started hearing people using it. Well, I have a divergent mind. My divergent mind, and it's almost like becoming an excuse for what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I basically, the simplest way I could think of it is that with survivors, in order for them to survive the day, if they're within an abusive situation, their minds will switch around. Instead of solving a problem with A, B, C, and D, and there's the answer, a lot of survivors have to go A, Q, P, R, S, T, back to A, B, C, and then get the answer. And sometimes it kind of can take 2 or 3 days to find the answer that they want. They'll get there. It just takes a little bit longer because of the way that they have reprogrammed their mind to survive the situation that they're in. And do you think things like that are acceptable, or can they actually hurt people by using these kind of like, well, I have ADHD, and that's why I do that, or is that all adding to this mental crisis that everyone's having? And so we're labeling everything so everyone can have a label now. The LGBTQ plus community has all these labels going for it, which is great because they all want to be identified. But when does it become ineffective and normalized, like you said earlier, you know?
I think it becomes ineffective when you have a society that's not tolerant, when you have an ignorant society out of fear. The whole gay community has the heterosexual white supremacists,
Mhm.
Southern kind of people, so scared that they're going to come and they're going to rape their children and all this stuff. And they don't realize it's just a choice in life. Love is love. You can't say love can only happen if it's here and love doesn't happen if it's there. I mean, I've gotten into these conversations where some people have said, well, I don't believe in gays having children. And I'd say, well, let me ask you a couple of questions here about that. So, are you saying you would rather not have two loving human beings who love each other, who can give a child a warm, loving home, than to leave them in an orphanage? And by the way, some of those heterosexuals who adopt kids abuse the crap out of them. So there's no like, if you're this is what's going to happen. It's
Right.
about love. That if the couple loves each other and they want to adopt a child, who cares? The kid's getting the benefit. Yeah, that's my attitude about the whole thing. I mean,
Totally agree. And again, it comes back to what you said, it's love. And love is the most powerful thing, I think. Also, you talked about this a little bit earlier today about how men do not share or do not talk or do not report mental health issues or do not report sex abuse situations. Why is our society to this day, with all this happening, why are men still reluctant to come forward?
we're in a transition stage. And I think a lot of men are scared to come forward because they feel, or they've been brought up to feel, that men don't cry, we don't express our emotions. And by doing so, we're weak and you might as well put a dress on and go put on lipstick. And
Right,
that is about the worst thing you can teach a child. I mean, my mother, God bless her, rest her soul, did the best she could with three kids. She was pregnant with a fourth and miscarried at the funeral, but she didn't let all of that bother her. She had to be tough, and she kept us in line. But it, again, it's choices. I mean, how do you effectuate that?
yeah, that's the question. How do we don't, or how can we? Yeah, I want to just bring around here a little bit about raising awareness here. What are some of the key components to help raise awareness, either with mental illness, mental health, sex abuse, physical abuse, any type of abuse?
Well, I think you have to find people who at one point refused to believe one way and now believe the other. For example, uh, Ronald Reagan's wife never believed in dementia and all of that kind of stuff. She thought mental health, nah, crazy. As soon as he got it, all of a sudden, she was a proponent of it. So unfortunately, our society seems to be crisis driven in order to shake us up, in order to do something. So if it doesn't come knocking on your back door, you want to just go like that and ignore it never happened because it's not happening to you. So why should I get involved in that? And so it shuts us down to not wanting to talk about our feelings for being in fear of being ostracized, for showing a weakness. Now, I don't advocate if you're in a corporate structure that if you're having a bad day that you sit at your desk and you cry. There are times when it's inappropriate and you just have to be a strong human being, not a man, not a woman, just a strong human being and saying, look, I know how I'm feeling. I'll wait to get in my car and then I'll cry my eyes out and do whatever I need to do to focus me. And I think women have played a very monumental part in saying, we don't want the macho man. We want a man that can deal with his emotions so that women tend to be more emotional than men. They've been brought up that way to be allowed to feel. And subsequently, they're much more balanced mentally than most men. And I'm making gross generalizations, I realize. So when that comes into play, you're encouraged to start talking a little bit about your emotions. And if you have the right person you're expressing it to and they resonate with it, then it makes you feel safe enough to open up a little bit more. So I think as we move down the path, we're getting to talk more and more about it. It again normalize our feelings, and it's okay that boys and men talk about their emotions and how they're feeling. I mean, I tell my wife all the time, I feel like crap. She goes, well, what's got you? And sometimes I can express it, and sometimes I say, you know what, honey, I don't know. She goes, "So what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm just going to feel like crap for a while. And then when I'm bored of myself, I'll get on with it." So, uh, you know, sometimes you just don't know. I mean, she had one of those episodes the other day. She goes, "I don't know why I'm upset. I just don't know." I said, "Was it my cooking?" She said, "No, come on." And
Oh my
so
God.
we make each other laugh that way, John Michaels, you know?
I know. I love it. Oh my God. That's so funny. I was watching a TV show on Netflix the other day called Notes of a Young Doctor. It's got Daniel Radcliffe and John Hamm in it. And they play the same character, but a younger and an older version, but they're in the same room together because they're addicted to some type of drug. But it's interesting to watch because what you were saying, it just was so clear that how these two men can actually cry with each other on screen. And we're seeing that. And they, and there's moments, yes, they're hugging each other, they're hugging themselves in a way, but it's like just this camaraderie that they created of this connection. And I think we're starting to see that more and more and more, a lot with some of the younger films where, the word gay, lesbian, and it's not used. It's just accepted. Everybody, you have a boyfriend? Oh, great, fine, that's okay. Or, are you a they, them, or that? Everything is becoming more like accepted in a way. And I think Hollywood is slowly pushing that forward for everyone. And I think that's a good thing. And I was just kind of curious about what you thought of that. And then I'd also would love to have your suggestion of what you provide to help survivors on their healing journey. It's kind of two
Okay, well,
questions there, but I
it
wanted to
is.
throw both of them in there for you so that we can get them
Well,
in.
think about Hollywood. Many years ago, started screaming, "We want diversity in movies," because it's all white guys. So it started out to be the African Americans complaining that they didn't have equal opportunity, and they didn't. Women didn't get paid equally, they did. But now it all of a sudden showed men hugging and kissing on screen. And, most guys and everyone go, "Oh, come on, I don't want to see this crap." But they're okay if two lesbians got together. So there's a little hypocrisy there. And I think the more we do it, the more it just normalizes that as well. So if you see two men kissing now, it's not a big deal. It's two people love each other. What's the big deal? Okay,
Right.
so that's the first part. The second part was, remind me, I'm sorry.
What are your suggestions to provide for survivors on their healing journey?
Okay. Um, Survivors. It's not easy. I'm not going to pretend that, that there's a secret formula. And if you do these three steps, magically your life's going to change. It's a process. It took a process to get you there. Now it's going to take a process to get you out of there. You have to start finding ways to trust yourself and recognize toxic people in your life and walk away. There's a billion people on the planet. There's more than enough people out there that can love you and be loved and like-minded and everything. Don't be afraid to make positive decisions. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I got so much help coming up with my stuff that I didn't even realize I was being helped. I was being mentored when I didn't even know what mentorship meant. So allow people to help you. And if you find it's getting toxic or they're using you and all that, boundaries, set the boundaries. And if that doesn't work, walk away. It may be painful in the short run, but in the long run, you'll be a lot happier.
It's brilliant. And this next question I want to ask really quickly is almost similar, but I think it's a little different. If you could give one message of hope to a survivor or to their family, what would you share with them?
I would say don't take mental health and let it ruin or define your life or who you are. You were born a clean, wonderful human being. Find those moments to reset your buttons. There's nothing on earth that stops you from pushing the reset button. Take a piece of paper out. I did this and I wound up writing when the rain stops. And I wrote down what I wanted my life to look like, where I was at this specific moment, and what did I need to do to get to the next step. And I found a piece of paper. I did that when I was single, of all the things I wanted my life to look at. And I found it 20 years into marriage. And I showed my wife, and everything on that paper I had in my life. And I just thought, I could die today, and I have no regrets. I've accomplished things that I never dreamed I could. I have a wonderful family, a great wife, 2 kids, and a circle of friends that changes certainly, but I feel safe with. So survivor, reviver. Be the cliche. Be the phoenix coming out of the ashes. Yeah, we're burnt, we're hurt, we're charred, we're beat up, we look like crap, but that doesn't mean we have to stay that way. Find other like people and support each other. Be of service to other people. If you can't service yourself, go to an old age home and say, anyone need a ride to the beauty parlor? There'll be a line 12 miles long,
True, true.
but at least you're offering service. And when you start doing things like that, it's going to make you feel a lot better and more worthy.
It's wonderful. That's incredible. My last question for you, are you working on anything that you're excited about right now that you could share with us?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Oh, I'm just stoked. Um, I wrote a novel called Christmas Voices that I turned into a screenplay, and it has a budget and all that. We have some investors that are sniffing around it really heavily, and it's a cross between A Wonderful Life and A Christmas Carol. It's a modern day Scrooge, and it takes you inside a fantasy village of Charles Dickens that my wife and I build every other year and stuff. So that's just powerful. Then Ageless is a story where this team called me and said, "Hey, would you kind of be a consultant for us on this project? Because we've had 6 scripts and none of them work." I said, "Well, send me one script." So they sent me a script I wrote, and I got 10 pages, and I called her. I said, "I can't even read this. It's so bad." And she said, "Well, we have this great story. It's a 500-page novel. Maybe you'd like to come on and help us produce it." Now, my producer, and I hope you're listening to this, Jana, is a very clever young lady. She just kind of like just reeled me in real slow. You got the hook and let's get him in here. And so they had me sign on as a producer to help them. Next thing I know is she's sitting there going, "Oh God, we got to get a writer." I said, "Yes, we do." So we hired this woman to write the screenplay, and it didn't work out the way the screenplay should have. She started it at the end and then did the TV thing like 3 weeks earlier, and I can't stand that kind of stuff. And this is a very linear story, and it deals with the blue zones around the world, why people live to 100 and all that, and it's a kidnapping scene and all that. So. When we read the version, I said, I don't know why people keep wanting to do this. It's a linear story, we got to do it. And Jana's looking at me like this. She goes, "Well, we kind of need a director on this. And I said, "You've had 4 of them. Don't they help?" And she said, "No, we got rid of all of them. But how'd you feel about directing this?" I said, "You've been setting this up for a while. Since the day I met you, John, I wanted you to direct this." I said, "Well, you might have let me in on that because it saves a lot of time." And so she got me signed up on that. And then she goes, "Okay, now we really need a script, don't we?" I said, "Yeah, we do." And she goes, "Do you know anyone that knows how to write scripts really good?" I said, "Jana, are you going to actually ask me to do it?" She goes, "Do what?" I said, I said, "Okay, I'll write the script." She goes, "Oh, good. I'll send over the papers right away." So I worked on it for, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks, 10 hours a day, literally 10 hours a day. And yeah, can I say, I printed the novel and I even had to put a binder on it because it would fall apart. And inside, you can see all my crazy notes. I went line by line throughout the entire novel so that I could figure out what had to go, what had to leave, and how do I take all this information and make it into visuals. Because in a novel, you can say, John Michaels was thinking this, John was thinking that, but you can't do that on camera. So I had to kind of revamp everything. Now, they sent it away to a company called Script Mechanic who does script analysis. And it came back, the first 2 paragraphs. I had to call my buddy and I said, "Hey, you gotta listen to this." They were so complimentary. It's complex film, you nailed everything. It's so powerful. And I just thought you could not have said anything better as a writer. So I'm real excited about that. Now, our next step for that is I have to start tagging all the elements in the script and making a schedule, a shooting schedule. Because people just say, "Well, the budget's going to be this, or we'll do it in 40 days." Or whatever. I said, "How did you come up with this?" you know, it's a guess. I can't do that. So I tag everything and I make a shooting schedule day by day. So I know what size crew I need on that day, how many people are involved. Do I need extra people because there's more makeup that's needed or this or that? Do I need a lead gang to get ahead of us to light that scene so I can go here and all that stuff? Now, once you have that done, then you can do a budget because now you know all the elements.
And congratulations. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Is there anything you'd like to say before we close out to everybody that
Yeah,
or
I
something
would
that
actually.
we good?
I would. Um, I was petrified to heal, quite honestly. I had no way to turn until the soccer coach dragged me onto a soccer field and he got it out of me why I wasn't playing. And because of him, I wound up being the co-captain of the team, undefeated in wrestling, uh, one of the best defensemen in ice hockey. And I was terrible at basketball, and I love basketball. I was just terrible at it. But then my math teacher also became a mentor because he said, John, I get a sense that you have a little problem with authority. I said, no, it's not little, it's really big. He said, okay, I'm going to tell you something about math I think you can appreciate. I said, like what? He said, 1 and 1 is 2. I said, yeah, everyone knows that. He said, nobody can argue that, can they? I said, no. And as soon as I said no, the light bulb went, math. There's a definitive thing there. 5 times 5 is always going to be 25. It's not 27 and a half, not 26. So he taught me the analytics of knowing when things are an absolute and when things have flexibility, all over math. And I became an A student in math. And I had no idea he was mentoring me at the time. None. My chemistry teacher, I'll make this short because I know we're running out of time. I signed up college to be a chemistry major because I wanted to cure cancer because that's what my dad died of it. And after a period of time, he took me for a walk and he put his arm around me and goes, why do you want to be in chemistry? First of all, you do 3-hour labs in 45 minutes and you're an A student. You're brilliant. But why do you want to do chemistry? So I told him about my dad because I thought so. I thought it was something like that. You're not the guy with the pocket the protector with the pens and all that. So you're out of my class. I said, what do you mean I'm out of your class? He goes, I already talked to mission administration. You got to find another place because you're not in my class anymore. John, you got to hear this. You're not a chemist. You're an artist. I see it in you. You need to go find yourself. And I was being mentored again, and I had no idea. And he kind of pushed me in that direction, and that's what got me into the theater that year.
Amazing. And we're so grateful for that because of all the stuff you've produced and created. John, I can't tell you how excited I was speaking with you today. And I want to make sure everybody, please pick this book up. It's incredible. It's a journey. It's about love. It's about hope. Even though some horrible things happen, there's always hope and love in this book. And that's what you present and you share with everybody all the time. You're an incredible person. So thank you.
Thank you, John Michael, and pleasure being here. And I hope your audience got some value out of it.
Thank you both so much. I did put a link to your website for the book in the chat so folks can check that out. I will be
Thank you.
checking that out as well. So thank you both so much for just a wonderful, inspiring conversation. I can't thank you enough.